Hey everybody, good morning. Welcome to the Morning Devo with Bo. It is April 5th, 2022. We are going to be in, boom, right up there, Leviticus chapter 23, 24. Have you ever been through the book of Leviticus before? What a trip. What an awesome book, man. So many of actually the Christian foundational ideas and theology all really kind of hone in this book. Very interesting, right? It's all about Israel coming out of Egypt, and now God is going to actually dwell with them. And in order to do that, there needs to be certain steps that are taken, and it keeps reiterating this term, and that is because God is holy. God is separated from us. He's different from us. He's unique in his being. And there is a way to approach God, and there's a way not to approach God, as we've seen in the book. And so I'm going to start today's Devo just by kind of reading another psalm. And I usually don't kind of get off of the chapter that we're in, but I just wanted to read it because I find there's a word that's used there that really hits me in this first chapter we're going to go through today, chapter 23. By the way, I want to say hi to Monica. She's joining me on the Devo, the Morning Devo, and I know I got others out there, so I'm excited to have those in the comment corner tuning in today. Tuesday, right? Man, Tuesday. Almost at Wednesday. Here we go. We're Tuesday. So Psalm 25 or 125, I just want to read it. It says, "Those who trust in the Lord are like Mount Zion." Mount Zion's a picture of Jerusalem, kind of this stability. And it says, "which cannot be shaken, but endures forever." They keep going, man. They persevere, right? It says, "as the mountains surround Jerusalem, so the Lord surrounds his people both now and forevermore." Right? So it's kind of a neat idea, right? God surrounds his people. Kind of neat. And this is what's going on in the book of Leviticus in kind of a big picture. And that is, God surrounds us. In chapter 23, again, God speaks to Moses, and the ideas speak to the children of Israel once again, that these are my appointed feasts. And now throughout the year in Israel's life, they're going to have feasts that they're going to follow, that they're going to, in a sense, obey. And they're going to celebrate. And it's going to be like a festival time for the people of Israel. But it's throughout the whole year. And so this chapter kind of brings up these festival times once again. And that makes me think too that, hey, am I festive in my relationship with God? Is my relationship with God that's something that's exciting and something that I think of God? I think of the deity, God, the creator of all. When I think of God, do I think of something like, cool, something awesome, something, festive, something, when I think of festivities, I think of, fun, kind of barbecue-ish, throwing the frisbee, playing baseball, skateboarding, stuff like that. Something that's cool, something that's enjoyable. And some people, have a walk with God where it's not like that at all. It's super dour and sour. And, I love it that in here, these feasts, these what's called appointed feasts, they are to make sure that this is something that's followed and that they proclaim these what's called sacred assemblies. Awesome times to get together and hang out and celebrate. God help me to even think of church this way, as a sacred assembly. Isn't that cool? Sacred assembly. Something special, something made holy, sacred, right? Something made holy, and something special, something different. It's a different kind of assembly. It's not a baseball game. It's not the football game. It's not the ice hockey game, right? But it's the sacred assembly. And do I see it as fun? Do I see it as exciting? Do I see it as an encounter with the true and living God? You know, and that's kind of sad if I saw football and I went, oh, football's like, awesome. I can't wait to go to a football game or something. But then I looked at the sacred assembly and I was like, kind of bummer. You know, that's a bummer. I got to go to church. You know, it kind of sounds funny when you put it like that, right? It's like God is the greater. God, by definition, is the best. He is the righteous. He is the perfect, right? So he's greater than anything. So you would think that the sacred assembly would be awesome. And so just as that Psalm 125 talks about, you know, God preserving his people, just as the mountains are around Jerusalem and that protect the place of Zion. Remember Bob Marley, Holy Mount Zion? Is any Bob Marley fans out there? Yeah, a lot of Bob Marley, a lot of Holy Mount Zion in his lyrics. Yeah, the idea of this psalm, of that Psalm 125, the idea of God surrounds just like the hills of Jerusalem with protection. Well, he surrounds his people with the sacred assemblies, right? With these festivals. The Sabbath, a sacred a sacred meeting. The 6 days you may work, but on the seventh day is a Sabbath rest, a sacred assembly, right? You are not to do any work. It's a time to assemble and enjoy God, man, and enjoy, you know who God is, which is so cool, right? And then the Passover and the unleavened bread is spoken of in verse 4. These are the Lord's appointed feasts, the sacred assemblies you are to proclaim, right? The Lord's Passover. Okay, the Passover festival. You've heard of that. The Passover begins at twilight on the 14th day of the first month. And on the 15th day of that month, the Lord's Feast of Unleavened Bread. Man, the very next day, there ain't even a break in the action with God, right? It's like, okay, festival, next festival, let's go right into the next day. And what are we going to do? We're going to do that for 7 days. And you must eat bread made without yeast, right? First day, hold the sacred assembly and do no regular work. For 7 days, present an offering made to the Lord by fire. And on the seventh day, hold a sacred assembly. Man, so here it's spelling out the sacred assemblies and how long the festivals were to last, the feasts were to last, these times where Israel would come together and they would have these wonderful, huge picnics, so to speak, I guess you could say. Some of them were really much like a camp session, that's for sure. First fruits. In verse 9, the Lord said to Moses, speak to the Israelites and say to them, when you enter the land I am going to give you, and you reap its harvest, right? You see the crop grow and all that stuff. Bring to the priest a sheaf of the first grain of your harvest, a collection of the first of that harvest. And he will wave the sheaf before the Lord, so it will be accepted on your behalf. Hey, this is from Bob. This is from Tina. Hey, this is from, the other person. This is from Monica. This is from Bo. This is from, we're going to wave that before the Lord. Hey, the priest were to do that. This is it. This is Bo's offering right here. Man, it would be, there it is, And then it says, verse 12, and on the day you wave the sheaf, you must sacrifice as a burnt offering, which is, remember, burnt offering is like the dedication. It's like, man, all of Bo is coming to you, man. Bo loves you, and Bo is bringing all of him as a human being before the Lord. I'm casting all my cares upon the Lord, right? For he cares for us, kind of idea. And so that's the burnt offering, the sweet burnt offering goes up, the smell, the aroma goes up to the Lord. And it says, and a burnt offering to the Lord, and it goes into the kind of a little more detail on that, kind of neat. And then it gets into the Feast of Weeks. From that day after the Sabbath, the day you brought the sheaf of the wave offering, count off 7 full weeks. So 7 times 7 is what? 49. And so you count 49 days. So you got 49 days till the next festival gets going. Now count off 50 days up to the day after the 7th Sabbath, and then represent an offering of new grain. So you might have heard the Pentecost, right? Well, here you go, the Feast of Weeks. And they're to present an offering of new grain to the Lord, the new grain of the harvest. From wherever you live, bring 2 loaves made of 2/10 of an ephah of fine flour. Okay, and they are to present that as a wave offering as well unto the Lord, which is awesome. And they present this bread. Isn't that cool? Jesus said, I am the bread of life. They present this bread to God. It's kind of neat. And it gets into little details of that harvest festival. Have you ever been to a harvest festival? What's that like? Is it dour, sour, bummer? Or you just like, let's go to the harvest festival. It's really a drag. No, you go to the harvest festival because it's awesome, man. You're totally stoked to go. You're going to have great food. It's going to be fun. Man, again, the idea of God surrounding us, him being enjoyable, God being pleasurable, God being with his people, surrounding all of Israel was to be surrounded by God. If God's going to dwell with them, man, God's going to dwell with them. They're going to be surrounded by God. And again, there's ramifications for that. God is a perfect being. God is holy. God is righteous. God is just. He is the perfect courtroom. He is the perfect law. He is the one who no compromise can ever get through. Nothing you do is unseen. He knows intent of heart, of mind. He knows exactly what our actions are. And wow, what a trip. Greg Laurie's Harvest Crusade. Hey, that's cool. Yeah, the Feast of Weeks, the Feast of Harvest, right? It kind of associating that with the Harvest Crusades that Greg Laurie does out of California. Awesome. And Feast of Trumpets. Now, the Lord said to Moses, say to the Israelites, this is verse 23 of chapter 23. So this is a cool chapter, 23. It's one of those ones you kind of mark and go, hey, this is the feasts section of the book. And it says, on the first day of the 7th month, you are to have a day of rest, a sacred assembly commemorated with trumpet blast. Whoa, there's going to be some loud trumpets going on in this section. Have you ever been to a parade, where you have some sounds of trumpets going off, or a really cool celebration? Maybe a team won a game and they come in on a bus into the city, parade style, and there's a lot of sounds and trumpets and things like that. Or you could just go to England and check out the football game, right? Football, soccer. You can go to a soccer game out in England, and man, all you hear is trumpets going the whole game. It's just like there's nothing like watching a soccer game in Europe, man. They really get into their soccer, that's for sure. South America as well. Super into it, loud, boom, 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 boom. This is how the Feast of Trumpets was. They are to commemorate it with trumpet blast. Kind of interesting, right? We've seen trumpet blasts in the Bible before. And we'll kind of get a thread of trumpet blastings throughout the Bible. It's kind of one of those areas where you kind of go, trumpets, let me mark that. Maybe that will come up later on in the Bible. And it will. So, do no regular work, but present an offering made to the Lord by fire. Okay, so you have a Feast of Trumpets, which is, and now we're getting into the latter part of the year. And now you have a Day of Atonement. The Lord said to Moses, we've been through this one before. In the, I just flipped over. It says the 10th day of the 7th month is the Day of Atonement. Hold a sacred assembly. Do no work on it because it's the Day of Atonement, when atonement is made for you before the Lord your God. And so it goes over a little bit of the Day of Atonement. Now it goes over the Feast of Tabernacles a little more and talks about a little more of this Feast of Tabernacles in the latter part of chapter 23. And so it's really cool if you have a study Bible. Sometimes a study Bible will have a list of all the feasts of Israel. And that's really cool. You can kind of go through it. There's Sabbath, there's all these different things: Passover, unleavened bread, first fruits, Feast of Weeks, Pentecost, harvest. There's the Feast of Trumpets. There's the New Year, Rosh Hashanah. There's the Day of Atonement, Yom Kippur. And then there is the Tabernacles, booths, meeting. So it's very interesting. And this Feast of Tabernacles is really cool in the latter section of chapter 23. And there's some interesting stuff with that feast as well. But it's just another idea of God surrounding his people. And God wants to surround us as well. Isn't that cool? God wants to surround us as well. We got Bob's mind kind of ticking away. His biblical brain's going 1,000 miles a second right now. He's in Revelation 21:3, and he's thinking, maybe that's familiar to this feast. Or maybe that's, the feast of this or feast of that. Is that going to be celebrated in what's called the millennial kingdom? So his prophecy brain, his biblical brain is going, and that's awesome. And that's what you do when you read these books, especially these ones that we're not in too often. Sometimes we start seeing kind of the origins of things, where things came from, right? In the New Testament. And what you're going to find in the New Testament is that everything that's written in the New Testament, almost everything, is something out of the Old Testament. It's some kind of reference, allusion, that kind of thing, to something of the old. That's right. So the old isn't really old, right? It's not really old. The new is just a fulfillment of what we call the Old Testament. The old is not really old. So I hope that makes some sense to you out there. It's really a gem, super gem, book of Leviticus. So I love this chapter 24. God says, of course, he's going to surround Israel. And then it gets into some really intense stuff in chapter 24. There's a judicial law, and there's judicial punishments. And then there's kind of what we do personally in our personal life, in how we judge one another. And you would understand that they're different, right? The court of law is going to do things different than I'm going to do. A court of law is going off of the book of law, and there's a judicial righteousness that's to be upheld. If there's not, then the law actually is no longer valuable, right? It no longer means anything because no one's holding to it. No one's making judgments based on it. And if you're not making judgments based on the law, then the law is not important. If I'm not making judgments based on God, then obviously God's not that important to me, right? It's like who's guiding your decisions? That kind of thing. Well, we understand judicial punishment is different from, what we do personally. Someone could break into my house, but I can't put that person who broke into my house, I can't arrest them, put handcuffs on them, put them in my attic, and say, you know what, you got 2 years, in my attic. You can't do that. I can't do judicial punishment as an individual. No, they got to go to the court. And so you see some of that in 24, where you see people there's a capital crime being committed, and there's execution that goes on. Not the electric chair, but other forms of execution that goes on through the judicial world of Israel, the judicial part of Israel, government of Israel, I guess it could be. I might not be using the exact word I want to use, but you get the idea. There's that compartment of Israel that has a judicial purpose. Now, in the New Testament, we are to pray and honor the king, and we need to be people that pray for our leaders and pray for everybody who's in places of this kind of power, because it is a very interesting place where a lot of collusion and coercion can come in. And the reason why God doesn't want people from the outside of Israel coming in and corrupting the people is because the judicial systems and all that will get corrupted within Israel as well. And when the judicial systems get corrupted in Israel, then everything starts falling apart. See, the laws are no longer being held to. The righteousness of the law is now no longer valuable in the town. And so now the society starts breaking down, right? Things start breaking down one by one. Now people are adhering to other ideas, their own, what's right in their own eyes, right? Not according to the law of God, but according to what's right in their own individual eyes. And we're going to see this progression. The reason why I'm saying all this is because we're going to see this progression in the Bible. So you might be going, Bo, why are we going into this? Well, first of all, if you look at our world today, it's the same thing, right? So that's one point. You need to understand that what's going on in our culture is exactly the same thing that God is telling the people, hey, I'm warning you against this so that you don't go in these directions. Because if you're not adhering to the judicial law of the land, then you are, in a sense, a law unto yourself. You're going to be doing stuff that is right in your own eyes. And what happens is that produces a narcissism, right? We just do what is right in our own eyes, right? We're not adhering to any governing authority. There is no longer any accountability, right? And God says, I'm the greatest, I'm the one to be glorified, I'm the ultimate accountability. Come to me, hold fast to my law. Let's not have the judicial system get all corroded. So be careful what you allow in, right? What you're doing, what is coming into this system, that kind of idea. I hope that makes some sense. But this will follow us throughout the Bible, by the way. We're going to see that Israel, guess what? Their court system will get corrupted, and it's going to go really sour. It's going to go real south quick. And as the judicial system gets corroded, everything gets corroded. The religious institutions get corroded within Israel, meaning all the priesthood gets corroded. And it trickles down into just the common person is now doing what they want to do in their own eyes. The law is no longer valuable. No one looks to it. No one listens to it. No one reads it. No one pays attention to it. Instead, they're paying attention to something else. And the question we always have to ask in Devos is, what are we listening to, right? What are we listening to? What is valuable to us? What is moving us? What value system are we going off of? And who is that authority? Who is that authority that we're listening to? And are they a good source of truth, of ultimate truth, of righteousness? Are they a good source of that? See, everybody claims to have some form of righteousness, some system of righteousness, some book of righteousness. When one person's critiquing one's righteousness and the other one's critiquing the other one's unrighteousness. And it goes back and forth. Everybody's critiquing one another. And that means that there is some standard that people are going off of individually. Well, the question comes in and is, who is right? And in the book of Leviticus, what God's saying is, I'm going to dwell with you. I'm holy. I'm God, the creator of everything. And I'm the one you're to listen to. Everybody is to come to me. I am going to surround you. And so that's what this is all about in the second part of chapter 24. It starts off with the oil and bread that's set before the Lord, a very brief little reiteration, but some cool parts of what this oil and bread that was set before the Lord was all about. And then it gets into this. Now, the son of an Israelite mother and an Egyptian father went out among the Israelites, and a fight broke out in the camp between him and an Israelite. The son of the Israelite woman blasphemed the name of God. Okay, to blaspheme the name of God. Doesn't sound good. Blaspheme the name of God with a curse. Said something about a curse with God. So they brought him to Moses. His mother's name was, and it gives the mother's name and the daughter, and they were from the tribe of Dan, one of the tribes of Israel. And they put him in custody until the will of the Lord should be made clear. So you see, there's a judicial setting here, right? He gets arrested, man. He goes into, and what's interesting is in Israel, the foreigner, or what's called the alien, the laws in the judicial area of Israel, the judicial sphere of Israel, applied equally both to the alien and to the native-born Israelite. There was no favoritism. The judicial law just went that one way. If you're in Israel, this is how it rolls, you know? And again, that was important, and it is important, you know, even in my heart. What is governing my heart, you know, today? Man, you know, what is governing my heart and my mind today? What is the law that is governing this, you know, that governing me? You know, is it some law out there? Is it something I learned at university? Is that what's guiding me? Is it something I heard from an authoritarian on the TV? Is it some committee that maybe I've heard something from? Is it a book? Like maybe I read some Marcus Aurelius, and I got some really cool little statements, and I said, hey, I'm going to live by that. You know, what is guarding and guiding my mind and my heart today that's moving me? And God, in a festival style, says, I want you guys to come to me. I want you to celebrate me and my relationship with you. And I want me to guide you. You know, I want you guys to desire that I guide you and that you look to me, and you look to me as righteous, and you look to me as the standard, and you don't go to anything else. That's why sorcerers and all those mediums weren't to be sought out. And there was a strict judicial punishment for that, because they would go to other things. They would start going to things that aren't righteous. And if God's God, God can't say, hey, go compromise a little bit of righteousness. Go to something that's not me, and it's okay. You know, God can't do that. God's God. He is the standard. He is the perfect. And when you're the perfect, you can't compromise the perfect. That would make you not perfect, you know? So anyway, to me, this makes a ton of sense. It makes all the sense in the world. And it shares why so much of our world is the way it is today, is because we don't no longer have a standard. We don't have God. We don't have God's law. And therefore, you know, we don't know what to do as people. We just do what is right in our own brains. So God, help us, have mercy on us, right? And help us to look to you in a good way, in a fun way, that you have plans for us, and you do have something that a heart to benefit us. And I think about that today, that God, you know, his laws are right. They're just, and they're to help us in every way. So the law of the Lord is perfect, converting the soul. So true. You guys have a great day, okay? Fun time in the Word together, that's for sure. Bob, Tina, you know, Monica, you know, just you guys all, man, so good having you in the house of Devo. Take care, okay? Bye-bye.